views expressed on the following broadcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. The dialogue on this show should not be considered as medical, psychiatric, or professional advice and is delivered only as personal opinions from the host, co-host, and guest. KHLT Recovery Broadcasting is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here are your co-hosts, Nathan A. and the Monty Man.
Hit it, Nathan.
Hey, I'm learning to be the light. Whoa. I'm learning to be the light.
All right, listen here, you scallywags and scallywaggles. Welcome to another fine episode of the best in recovery talk and positive music here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. Hey, by the way, Nathan Adams is sitting right across from me. I invited several people. You're supposed to only invite 3. That's the official rules. But several people to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, like thousands of people are doing. Nathan Adams is one of them, my co-host. And Cameron Myers another. Cameron did it right after I did it. And
oh, man.
Yes, you don't have very many hours left, Mr. Adams.
I'm all over it.
And then all the members of my advisory board have been challenged to take the challenge, and I have not heard back from one of them yet. So they're going to look like real dogs if they don't step up to the plate. I'm talking to you, Ken Seeley, Chris Schroeder, Mark Lundholm, Matt Brown, Chris Raymer, Brent Cook. It's there now. Caroline Preston, who's on the board, I didn't challenge her because of health reasons. So don't feel left out, Carol. I just knew that it's something you wouldn't be able to do. But I challenge you guys. And I'm thinking, you know, this whole time, I'm thinking, and not to make less of the ALS thing at all, because it is vitally important that we create awareness for things that need our attention. But at the same time, see, the whole idea is this ice water on the body thing. Is you get to experience just a smidgen of what somebody that has this feels like, because of the way it shocks your body, and so you know. So I'm thinking, okay, addiction is the number one health crisis in our world. We need to have a challenge for that and raise money for Take 12 Radio, so we can get the word out more, or raise money for folks who can't afford to get into treatment that is, you know, they really need to get into, or whatever it is. I don't know what we would do. What would we do? What would we do? What would the challenge be to raise awareness about addiction and the truth about addiction and the truth about recovery?
I personally think I already mentioned a few things, but I think we ought to take a poll. Things that are pretty much torture on you, Monty.
Torture on me?
Eyebrow shaving, acupuncture on the whatever. I mean, just torture. I'm ready. I would pay to see it anyways.
Yeah, but you said you only paid $5.
That's right.
Cheapskate. Anyway, so if somebody comes up with an idea to raise awareness and to raise funds so we can help get people into proper treatment. Because I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes you need more than a meeting. Sometimes you need specialized care. Sometimes you need some mental health professionals and people that treat the whole person, body, soul, and spirit. Sometimes you need that. And a lot of people do need that, and they're not getting it.
Right.
And the biggest obstacle is finances. So, man, I'd be willing to entertain anything like that and help promote it here at the radio station. All right, well, what we're going to talk about this week is we're going to talk about 12-step support meetings. Now, most people that listen to this station know that I've got this bugaboo that we become meeting dependent, and we have a tendency to, here at the station, to be a little critical about becoming meeting dependent. I don't want to focus on that this week. I want to talk about how the meeting thing got started. I want to talk about the benefits of meetings and all the good stuff that meetings bring. Because we know meetings don't keep you sober unless, if you're an alcohol abuser or a heavy drinker or a drug abuser, but you're not the real deal, you're not the addict or the alcoholic, meetings are going to benefit you just fine. And you may not need a spiritual awakening as a result of steps that you don't want to work. You just need to grow up. And that's fine. But let's focus on all the good things about the fellowships. Because there is a ton. There's a ton of great stuff about recovery fellowships that sometimes, in our desire to straighten everybody out and fly right, we can kind of skip over some of that stuff. And I don't want to do. I want to make sure that we give credit where credit is due. So how did meetings get started? So we're going to talk about that. And before we do that though, we're going to do some useless trivia. So we're going to come right back after this and tackle that and get right into this thing. So don't go away, my friends. We'll be right back. Hey, September is National Recovery Month, and the Recovery Northwest Project, September 12th through the 14th, beginning Friday at 9 a.m. with an incredible 2-day conference at the Red Lion, Vancouver, featuring the movers and shakers of the recovery community. Then on Sunday, we'll move on over to beautiful Esther Short Park after the recovery walk and to join the powerful Hands Across the Bridge ceremony. Exhibitors, music, speakers, fun, food, and the power in numbers as hundreds of us gather to celebrate National Recovery Month at the Recovery Northwest Project, Vancouver, Washington. Visit recoverynw.org for details on all the events. Supported in part by the Clark County Department of Community Services Alcohol and Drug Program and the Clark County Substance Abuse Advisory Board. Remember the James Gang? Remember those guys? Joe Walsh and the James Gang? Wow, I love those guys. All right. Take 12 Trivia is sponsored by Broad Highway Recovery, which is a national addiction intervention recovery monitoring and consulting company. They are located in Richmond, Virginia, but they work nationally. Their commitment is to the family and their loved ones struggling with substance abuse issues. Their mission is to guide families through the entire recovery process. That process involves education, planning, finding the right facility, intervention, transport to treatment, monitoring of the treatment experience, aftercare, and transitional living. I can't even talk today. After treatment. And at least 6 months and up to a year of monitoring to ensure the best possible outcome for you and your loved one. Visit broadhighwayrecovery.com. All right, so they're sponsoring Take 12 Trivia this week. And, okay, so let's get some of that great trivia music going here. The most hated show on the internet. Aha. Okay, here is trivia question. You get 3 and a bonus, Nathan Adams. This does not if you get these all right, this does not excuse you from the Ice Bucket Challenge. Okay, question number 1. This is totally useless trivia. You burn more calories sleeping than you do what? These are your 3 choices. Barbecuing, watching television, or brushing your teeth. Which one do you burn more calories sleeping than you do the other?
Watching television.
You are correct. Wow. Yeah, very nice. The first CD pressed in the United States was A, Bruce Springsteen, B, Dire Straits, or C, the Doobie Brothers? First CD pressed in the U.S.
I'm going to say Dire Straits.
Well, you would be incorrect. It was Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. Isn't that amazing? I like that sound. Okay, the only real person to ever have been the head on a Pez dispenser. You know what a Pez dispenser is, right? This is the only real person. Was it Ronald Reagan, Betsy Ross, or Ozzy Osbourne?
Ronald Reagan.
It was Betsy Ross. Yeah, I knew you'd get that one wrong. Okay, and here's your bonus question. From space, the brightest... Now, listen to this carefully. Okay. From space, the brightest man-made place on the planet is, from outer space, Las Vegas, New York, or the Great Wall of China?
Las Vegas.
You are correct, Nathan Adams. Yay! You got 2 out of 4. Very nice.
That's right.
All right. Opening up the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, on page 156 of the 3rd edition, this is in the chapter A Vision for You. And I'm going to read this story here. And, I was telling Nathan before we went on the air, I was saying, sometimes I forget how powerful some of the stuff in this book is.
Yep. This is
just amazing, amazing stuff. And this is referring to Dr. Bob and Bill W. here. It says, but life was not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. One day, they called up the head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic prospect. She replied, yes, we've got a corker. He's just beaten up a couple of nurses, goes off his head completely when he's drinking. But he's a grand chap when he's sober. Though he's been in here 8 times in the last 6 months. Understand, he was once a well-known lawyer in town. But just now, we've got him strapped down tight. So, just that piece.
Right.
This guy was a prominent, well-known lawyer. I don't know if he was well-liked or not. He was a lawyer, but he was prominent. And he's a great guy when he's not drinking. But he's an absolute lunatic. They've got him in at least 4-point restraint.
Right.
Maybe even 5-point. That's where they got your head down to. Here was a prospect, all right, but by the description, none too promising. The use of spiritual principles, and what are those? Those are the steps. In such cases, was not so well understood as it is now. One of the friends said, put him in a private room. We'll be down. Now, you need to understand that back then, the only time you got a private room was if you were dying.
Right.
If they had already written you off, you're terminal, you're dead.
Right.
Well, 2 days later, a future fellow of Alcoholics Anonymous stared glassily at the strangers beside his bed. Now, this gentleman that we're talking about is a guy named Bill Dotson. And there's a very famous picture that most people in 12-step fellowships, whether it's AA, NA, or whatever, recognize. And it's Bill Dotson, Dr. Bob, and Bill W., and they're sitting by his bed with a Bible in their hand. That's what this is referring to. Who are you fellows? And why this private room? I was always in a ward before. Said one of the visitors, we're giving you a treatment for alcoholism. Hopelessness was written large in the man's face as he replied, oh, but that's no use. Nothing would fix me. I'm a goner. The last 3 times I got drunk on the way home from here. I'm afraid to go out the door. I can't understand it. So he's baffled.
Right.
For an hour, the two friends told him about their drinking experience. They told him their war stories. That's what they were doing. Over and over, he would say, that's me. That's me. I drink like that. The man in the bed was told of the acute poisoning from which he suffered, how it deteriorates the body of an alcoholic and warps his mind. There was much talk about the mental state preceding the first drink. Yes, that's me, said the sick man. The very image. You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it'll do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm a nobody now. From what you tell me, I know more than ever. I can't stop. So what he's saying is, by listening to you guys, now I know for sure there's no hope for me. At this, both of the visitors burst into a laugh. Said the future fellow anonymous, "Damn little to laugh about that I can see." The two friends spoke of their spiritual experience and told them about the course of action they carried out. What was that? It was the step process.
Right.
He interrupted. "I used to be strong for the church." So, okay, right there tells me they were talking to him about the Lord. They had a Bible in their hand. They were talking to him about the Lord. The picture in the famous picture shows him with a Bible, one of them with a Bible in her hand. And he brings this topic up. I used to be strong about the church. Then he says, but that won't fix it. I prayed to God on hangover mornings and sworn that I'd never touch another drop. But by 9 o'clock, I'd be boiled as an owl. Next day found the prospect more receptive. He had been thinking it over. Maybe you're right, he said. God ought to be able to do anything. Then he added, he sure didn't do much for me when I was trying to fight this booze racket alone. That's the key word, alone. On the third day, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his Creator and said he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. So what did he do? They were there with a Bible in their hand. They were talking about God. On the third day, he gave his life to the care and direction of God. What did they do? I am suggesting that they, in whatever form it took back then, led him in the salvation prayer. They had a Bible. I don't know for sure, but it sounds pretty possible. And then it says, he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. His wife came, scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. That afternoon, he put on his clothes and walked from the hospital a free man. So this guy changed, man. God did something for him that he couldn't do for himself. He went from being in a private room, which meant you were going to die, to walking out of the hospital free. Had he spent a year working on the steps? No. Had he been discipled for a year and gone to Bible college? No. There wasn't that much time spent with the guy. These guys took him through this process really fast. And God intervened in his life. However that showed up there, we weren't there. But I suspect it had biblical principles at the very least, because that's what they had in their hand. They didn't have big books. He walked out of there a free man. It says he entered a political campaign, making speeches, frequenting men's gathering places of all sorts, often staying up all night. He had lost the race by only a narrow margin. But he had found God, and in finding God, he found himself. That was in June 1935. He never drank again. So was he constantly recovering? No, he had recovered. He, too, has become a respected and useful member of his community. He has helped other men recover and is a power in the church from which he was long absent. So he went back to his roots. So you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. What did they have found? They found a relationship with their Creator, and they had to tell people about it. Otherwise, they really thought they would drink again. After several failures to find others, a 4th turned up. He came through an acquaintance who had heard the good news. He provided to be a devil-may-cure young fellow whose parents could not make out whether he wanted to stop drinking or not. They were deeply religious people, much shocked by their son's refusal to have anything to do with the church. He suffered horribly from his sprees, but it seemed as if nothing could be done for him. He consented, however, to go to the hospital, where he occupied the very room recently vacated by the lawyer. So guess what? He was dying too. He got the same room, the private room. He had 3 visitors, so now there's 3 of them, right? After a bit, he said, "The way you fellows put this spiritual stuff makes sense. I'm ready to do business." I guess the old folks were right after all, referring to his parents. So one more was added to the fellowship. All this time, our friend of the hotel lobby incident remained in that town. Talking about Bill. He was there 3 months. He now returned home, leaving behind his first acquaintance, the lawyer and the devil-may-cure chap. These men had found something brand new in life. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others. They shared their homes, their slender resources, and gladly devoted their spare hours to fellow sufferers. They were willing, by day or night, to place a new man in the hospital and visit him afterwards. They grew in numbers. They experienced a few distressing failures, but in those cases, they made an effort to bring the man's family into a spiritual way of living, thus relieving much worry and suffering. They were working with the family too, Nate.
I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
You know, they were working with it, and they brought them into a spiritual way of living. They didn't just take a Bible to the guy in the hospital. They were visiting the family members.
Mm-hmm.
A year and 6 months later, these 3 had succeeded with 7 more. So it was a year and a half. Seeing much of each other, scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women, happy in their release, and constantly thinking how they might present their discovery to some newcomer. In addition to these casual get-togethers, it became customary to set apart one night a week for a meeting to be attended by anyone or everyone interested in a spiritual way of life. Aside from fellowship and sociability, the prime object was to provide a time and place where new people might bring their problems. And there you go.
Okay. Yep.
Later on, it says they knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known these strangers always. How many times have we sat in meetings and said, "Man, I feel like, we're kindred spirits."
Right. Right.
They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had visioned the great reality, their loving and all-powerful Creator, God. And it goes on to say, from surrounding towns, families drive long distances to be present. Wow. A year and a half. How many of us would take a year and a half out of our lives and dedicate it to people? And it says right from the beginning, but life was not easy for the 2 friends.
Right.
They weren't having a good time. They weren't.
They were sucking for air a little bit too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it started, man. And I think that's just such a powerful story because did Bill and Bob and Bill Dodson, did they have any idea where this thing would end up years later? They didn't know. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a crystal ball and say, well, if we just keep plugging away, thousands are going to get sober.
Right.
And they didn't know. They probably got discouraged. They probably thought, who's really paying attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got 17 people now. So now we got 20. Now we got 40, whatever. And then, Bill exaggerates later and says, we had 100.
Now we're in the millions, buddy.
But now you can't exaggerate it. It's true.
Right.
It's all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So do meeting makers make it? Not if that's all they're doing. But should people be going to meetings? I think so.
Absolutely.
So Nathan, what are some of the things that meeting attendance has done for you? What's some of the gifts that it's granted you?
Well, probably one of the biggest gifts is, feeling different, not unique, or feeling unique, feeling broken, feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
And going around people like me that were, doing the deed and getting some things from it. It was huge for me to see that, because it's monkey see, monkey do.
Right.
And a lot of things I've done in life. And, and then all of the people I knew, most of them are dead or doing their thing. And
I mean, people that when you were out there?
When I was out there.
Yeah.
So, I developed a whole nother circle of people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just all that together. Plus, I need, the big word nobody likes to talk about is having some accountability. And for me, when I go to meetings, that's where, I get faced with some of my stuff. I hear something, oh, man, and it, I just need that. I need to be checked, because I say it all the time. I'm in company of a madman when I'm by myself,
Right.
And so I need to keep my head checked. And so, you mix all that stuff together, and it's a recipe. It sure as heck does. It's definitely a shove in the right direction.
I have a very good friend, a very close friend, who I agree with probably 95% of the things he says. But one of the things he says, meetings aren't even a piece of the pie. And I disagree. I really do.
They're huge.
The good book says, do not forsake the assembly of the believers. It's referring to the gathering of those who believe in God on a regular basis. If getting together didn't have value, didn't have power in there with God behind it, then why would God suggest that? And I believe that any time that you are involved in something that is worthwhile, getting together with other people that are of common mind and common purpose is absolutely essential.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that piece. That piece of the pie is absolutely essential. And I think that is a spiritual thing. We're not the Lone Ranger. Now I do know there's called, I think it's called loner meetings. There are people that only meet once a year because they're on the North Pole somewhere or at a weather station and stuff. And they stay sober. Why? Because they have a connection with God. Maybe they have a big book or a Bible or some spiritual literature or whatever. But God gets them through. But why would you want to just do that? I mean, if you had the choice, why would you want to just be you and your Heavenly Father bebopping along life? Wouldn't you want to be hanging out with other people? I mean, isn't it built into us to be social creatures? It talks about the instincts in the 12 by 12. One of our natural God-given instincts is social, right?
Right.
So why would you want to isolate? Now, I know we get ticked off at what people say, and I'm not going back there, and I've been guilty of that. But usually I find myself crawling back,
And I find myself, and we kind of do it on the show. We dissect a lot of stuff. We're trying to get the meat and not the potatoes.
Right.
But let me tell you something. My first years in recovery, there was a process I went through that I wasn't even aware of. And this is where it's real easy for people to say, God, this God, meeting makers make it 90 days. Those are all, because I see God at work. I mean, I know atheists that have like 2-3 years clean. I know native people. I mean, I know, and it's all part of a process.
Yeah.
I've been through a lot of stages.
Sure.
And and it's all about the growth. It's
that
all about learning lessons.
Where you're at now.
Right. And somebody could tell me, just like my son, I say, Bud, I've been through that. This is probably what you're going to go through, and this is probably what you're going to expect. And probably should do this, and they look at you just like a teenager going, whatever, I know it all, you know?
Yeah.
And it's all on the same ball, you know, so it's all about...
We don't know what God's up to.
That's right. It's all about us being patient and showing the love and all, you know, and uniting and doing our deal, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I know that the big thing I see is a lot of, I mean, you go to some of the old-timer meetings, and they all got these... You know, you stand up when you talk, and all these old people that just say just rough stuff, fundamentalist, you know, and that's all fine and dandy. But for me, dude, pressure, I can't stand it. Mm-hmm. You know, so I need a place. I might be an arrogant poophead, but what's going to happen when I'm around positive people doing the right thing is it's going to suck me in, and I'm going to get aware of my stuff.
Yeah, because you can be firm, but be palatable.
That's right.
You can carry a message and not waver, and be firm, but be loving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I get that. I mean, you know, thank goodness my first meeting wasn't, you know, shut up and sit down. You have nothing to say.
Man,
I couldn't receive that. Mm-hmm. I was broken, man.
That's right.
You know, and I know some people say, well, I needed that. Well, I maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. I just know my personal experience, you know. And the first meeting I went to wasn't like that at all. Thank goodness.
Think about how many times just between our relationship, Money, where I've said, and we're in a disagreement or something, and I say something, or you say something to me, an observation, or call me on something, some of my stuff, and I just absolutely don't hear it, and I balk it, and I'll argue till the end of the earth. And like 2 years later, on my own terms, I go,
right.
That old bald turd head had something to say then. You know what I'm saying? And it's fun. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how.
Yeah, Fruit Loop Dingus.
That's Fruit Loop Dingus. That's right. You know.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we come back. I'll share particularly one thing that meetings has really done for me. And you may be surprised. All right, folks, don't go away. I got to find my mouse. Where's my mouse? There we go. We'll be right back.
SoberChat is the first ever location-sensitive mobile chat application designed to instantly connect people who share the common goal of staying sober. SoberChat will revitalize and revolutionize 12-stepping as we know it. At any time of the day or night, you can simply log on and help someone by making phone contact, taking someone to a meeting for coffee, or chatting via text messaging on the SoberChat mobile application. Register now for your download of the SoberChat app. Visit SoberChatApp.com. The power of sharing is at your fingertips. SoberChat, the app that saves lives. SoberChat is not a replacement for attending 12-step meetings, sponsorship, or working the 12 steps.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written.
Ah, yes, the Moody Blues.
Never meaning to send.
All right, welcome back. Okay,
You are a madman.
I know.
A function comes with a band. If you guys notice, this crazy old guy across from us, we had this free concert band deal, and some of those guys showed up, and so whammo, we're getting he does that. Like if he watches a commercial on a new movie that has a certain song in it, it just develops into this
it's in the show.
whole weird deal, man. Oh my goodness.
I know. Well, I got to get content from somewhere. One of the things that I hate about any gathering of people on a regular basis that has actually been one of the things that has benefited me the most. And I think this is what we find this in life. Some of the things we hate the most are the best things for us. Is that iron sharpens iron. In fact, there's a that's a biblical quote. It is also part of a recovery program within Alcoholics Anonymous in some of the fellowships. There's an iron sharpens iron meeting format, and someday we'll talk about that. But it sometimes the very people that just rub you the wrong way, right, can act as sandpaper to help smooth out your rough edges.
That's the truth.
You know, and if I didn't attend meetings, I would never have met some of the most difficult people in my life that have helped smooth out some of my rough edges.
Here's the kicker. A lot of the times the things you can't stand in other people are something you need to work on.
Right.
Something about yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, things like that.
You bet. Mm-hmm. That you may not. And you know, my first response is, well, I don't do that. Well, maybe I really believe that because I've never seen that before in myself. And maybe I need to consider it. My sponsor used to tell me that. My sponsor, Doug, used to say, you know, maybe when somebody points something, comes up to you and says, you know, you blah, 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 you know, maybe you should just say, thank you, I'll consider it. And then go home and truly consider it. Just don't say it as a sarcastic, I'm blowing you off, you know, but really consider it. I thought, ouch, you know. Mm-hmm. And when you do, okay, if you truly consider it and it's not true, fine, you haven't lost anything. But what if it is true? Then you get an opportunity to grow. You know, and if I went, and that's what drives me crazy about people that say, well, I don't go to church because they said this and they said that, or I don't go to meetings because they say this and they say, or I stopped meeting with that chapter of my union because they're so mean. And they look at people. Serenity J. He says, you know, even if I went to the moon, I would have problems because there I would be. You know, if we're not around people that are difficult, then how are we going to learn patience and tolerance? How are we going to learn to love the unlovable? To love somebody who's lovable, that's no big deal, right? So what? But when you learn patience and tolerance and kindness and charity and all that stuff, I think we learn it when we're around people that we disagree with, people that rub us the wrong way, because we're challenged. At that point, when somebody says something that is so out of the ballpark, and I don't mean in a good way, we have an opportunity at that point to make a decision. Are we going to grow through that? Are we going to react? How are we going to respond? And I can just see, you know, our Creator going, all right, had a pretty good day today, huh? Think everything's kind of going smooth? Well, tonight at the meeting, let's see how you do.
Well, think about this. I'm in this world, and for me, the world can easily take me off my spiritual path and not open any channels
right
to my Maker or to my inner peace or anything. I mean, that's what it's designed to do. One of the things about meetings, when I go to meetings, it forces. I open a channel and I hear God through some dude or something, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it just, I don't know. If you're going to run a marathon, you know, you have to show up in your little tighty-whitey shortsy and a little bit of water bottle and push yourself. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you ain't never going to be good at it.
I painted a terrible picture. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, if we're not challenged, if we're not stretched, we don't mature.
That's right.
You know,
who was it that used to say, "As long as you're Mick," one of my first sponsors.
Mick. That was my very first sponsor too.
As long as you're trudging forward, you're making progress.
Right.
Stagnant. Remember that little?
Yeah.
I'm just picturing yourself on a boat just rowing against the current. But as long as you're moving forward, buddy, you're doing it, buddy.
You know, and that guy, I used to say, because he would say the same thing every meeting. You know, and he start to share, and you go, all right, roll out the sleeping bag. We're going to be here for a while, you know. Right. But it's the things that he said that stick out in my mind. Mm-hmm. You know,
it's weird.
Yeah, he was my very first sponsor. Another thing that meetings did for me is it helped me not to be so nervous in front of other people talking about my stuff. You know, I thought I had that down pat, but I never really did. You know, because I was always feeling like, yeah, I'm on the spot because I have to be this certain kind of person. When I found out about terminal uniqueness and that I wasn't so unique, I was able to kind of rest a little bit. And then when I would learn to share, and my sharing changed from being boastful and know-it-all to being more, you know what, I'm kind of a jerk today. You know, maybe admit some of that stuff. And I was able to learn how to do that in front of people. I learned how to be transparent I go into 12-step support meetings. I didn't learn it in scouting. I didn't learn it in church. I learned it there. I don't know why. Some people learn it in those other places. I didn't. I learned it there. Where would we have learned this 12-step process if we hadn't gone to 12-step meetings? I don't know. Maybe we would have. I don't know. I didn't, though. I was a Christian since 1971, and I didn't get it. I didn't get my relationship and where I stood in my loving Father's eyes until after I did this step process. It didn't go from my head to my heart until that happened, dude. So, do meeting makers make it? Not that that's all they're doing, but you ain't going to make it. How are you going to get the stuff if you're not there?
Put this simple for me, because I can dissect and dissect and dissect.
Right.
But how many times have you heard go, when I go to a meeting, don't know why, when I leave, I feel a little bit better than when I was there. Because there's so many things that happen internally, spiritually, that I'm not even aware of, that we can't even put words to. And there's so many, there's so many angles my Creator's working.
Right.
I don't even realize sometimes ever, and sometimes I realize, oh, that's what's going on. So it's kind of I just know simply sometimes I have to say, okay, we know this stuff's going on, but simply, does my spirit feel better when I go? Does it carry on through the week? Do I feel stronger in my recovery?
Right.
And when I say yes, 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 then it's something I know I need to do.
Yeah.
Because we can dissect this forever. We can find
negatives,
we can find good, and we're probably only scratching the surface of some of the internal spiritual stuff and growth that's going on there.
Right.
Really.
Right. You're right. You're absolutely correct. Okay, so I'm going to give a challenge out there to listeners. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. I would like to get some emails this week, so we have them for next week. Tell me three positive things that you continue to receive when you go to your 12-step fellowship. And the email is here at take12radio@comcast.net, and we'll share them on the air. We won't use your last name. We won't even use your name if you don't want us to. Just make sure you tell me that, and we'll do that. And let me see here. I think that's about it for this week, to tell you the truth. We got some great things coming up. We've got the Recovery Northwest Project coming up in Vancouver. And that's the 12th, 13th, and 14th of September. Nathan, if he gets his elk, is going to be up there with me. So pray he gets his elk. My wonderful wife, Marcia, is going to be up there. We're going to do the Hands Across the Bridge thing. If you haven't heard the interviews with the co-founder of the Recovery Northwest Project and the co-founder, Patty Katz, of Hands Across the Bridge, it's a phenomenal story. They started out with just a few people, and in just like a couple of years, it grew, and now there's thousands of people that cross the I-5 bridge. It's an amazing thing. And there's places all over the country that are doing that in September for National Recovery Month. So don't forget, Board of Directors, Advisory Board, you have an ALS challenge out there.
Iceman.
Yes, you better get to it.
You watch. I'll take care of her.
I know that you will. Hey, listen, closing out the show with some music, some recovery music, as always, Barry J. on a night like this.
You have loved me, you have saved me many times before. Give me as I ask of you for the strength once more to lift me from this place. Feels like an abyss. Will you be my saving grace on a night like this? Many nights I'd numb the pain and hide from all my fears. Turned to pills, believed cocaine for far too many years. So tempted to retrace, I wonder what I'd miss Will you be my saving grace on a night like this? On a night like this, I feel as if there's nothing left to lose. On a night like this, oh, I don't know which way I'm gonna choose. On a night like this, will I be sober in the morning sun? If I slip, will I recover? Has the devil won? If I leave without a trace, am I someone you would miss? Will you be my saving grace on a night like this? On a night like this, I wanna use and oh, I wanna drink. On a night like this, I don't wanna lose and I don't wanna think. On a night like this, you have saved me. Will you help me out once more? On a night like this, I'm so afraid to end up like before. The voice inside my head won't let me get to sleep. If temptation wins tonight, God knows what I would read. On a night like this, I feel as if there's nothing left to lose. On a night like this, I don't know which way I'm gonna choose. On a night like this, will you save me? Spare me here once more. On a night like this, I come before you, desperate and unsure. The tears run down my face as I reminisce. Will you be my saving grace on a night like this? Will you be my saving grace on a night like this?
Absolutely beautiful. I felt like that. I have experienced that. Perhaps you have too. Next up is my buddy Freebo with a song that really, I got to tell you, this song means a lot to me. My dog Nala, I wish I was more like her. I think if you listen to this song closely, you're going to get what I mean. If we could be just a little more like our furry friends, I think we'd get a lot more accomplished. Here's Freebo with More Like You.
Soft and tender, tough as steel. Here and now you know what's real. No one tells you how to feel. You lie there so peacefully, loving unconditionally. I wish I was less like me. What can I do to be more like you? When I get in my way, what would you say to get me through? Days like these I know I need to be more like you. As I try to beat the clock, that voice inside my head won't stop. You just said no need to talk. As the sun is going down, you just smile and I just frown. I'm so lost and you're so found. What can I do to be more like you? When I get in my way, what would you say to get me through? Days like these days I know I need to be more like you. All the commotion, all the human misery in a world that's so confused. But your love and devotion, such a perfect mystery, guiding me to someday be more like you. Life is short, here and gone. Through the tears I'll carry on. Give me hope and keep me strong. To face my trouble, know what's true. To treat each day like it's brand new. I know that's what you would do. That's what I'll do. Say to get me through days like these. It's hard to be. Yes, days like these I know I need to be more like you.
Try playing that song, looking at old pictures of your dogs and cats that you've had over the years or family pets, and try not to cry. I dare you. Hey, listen, our last song is Gracie Vandiver's Trail of Light. What a beautiful song, really depicting the fellowship of the Spirit in our 12-step support meetings, program, and gatherings. Here's Gracie.
Some days are really hard to get through. One day at a time seems way too long. When I can't see God's hand at work, and I forget my own self-worth, and I don't feel like I belong. That's when I need some extra comfort from someone who has walked in my shoes, reminding me that this will pass, and though it hurts, it doesn't last. They take me by my hand and pull me through. When you don't know where to turn and you think you're alone, when it feels like your darkest night, remember that there's always someone who's been there before you. Look for the trail of light. I'll be your beacon in the darkness, 'cause I have known what hope and faith can bring. I'll light the way for you to see, like others did in front of me. Together we can walk through anything. When you don't know where to turn and you think you're alone, when it feels like your darkest night, remember that there's always someone who's been there before you. Look for the trail of light.
for someone else to see. When you don't know where to turn and you think you're alone, when it feels like your darkest night, remember that there's always someone who's been there before you. Look for the trail of light. Yeah, just look for the trail of light.
Alrighty. All right, my friends, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with Nate, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity
When
for you.
it all came crashing down, there was only darkness all around. But in the distance I could see a flame. There's so much more to living in your world. Savior, what you did for me. You gave me something I want everyone, I mean everyone to see. When we stumble and it all goes wrong, only you can make it right. So I say, I'm learning to be the light. Whoa, whoa, I'm learning to be the light. Whoa, whoa, I'm learning to be the light. Whoa, whoa, I'm learning to be the light.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Be the light.
Kitty, 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 kitty.